Before I start, does anybody have questions about anything? All right, so I wanted to cover this because I think it's very important. Decision making as managers, at some point you're going to be making decisions and probably have to make them on your own without any help. One thing that I want to point out is that managers today have to make a lot of decisions that managers before necessarily didn't have to, and it's because today things are different. Our resources are different. We're working with less money in some instances. You know, companies are merging, so you're having to manage, you know, two different types of people or two departments. You're having to cross-train people. You're having to lay people off and downsize. So decision making today is important, but it's also important to know that it's different from how it's been in the past. And the difference is that it's going to be more critical now. You're really going to have to think critically when you make decisions now versus in the past. So we have different types of leaders, and depending on what type of leadership traits you have, it's going to somewhat determine how you make decisions. So we have autocratic leaders, which basically they call all the shots. They make all decisions. They don't take any input from anybody else. It's probably kind of like that in the Army, maybe. Okay. Then we have consultative leaders who might get some input from other people, but they still ultimately decide. But at least they consult other people to get their opinions or their thoughts before they just make a decision. We have democratic leaders who kind of participate with their staff and other people in making decisions. And then we have delegative leaders who basically turn the process over to someone else. Now remember, as we talked about before, about delegation, when we do delegate things, it has to be non-managerial. So in this instance, if they're turning over a process to somebody else, then it's obviously going to be a task that's non-managerial. So, while we're going to make a lot of decisions as managers, there might be times where we should avoid decisions, right? So here are a few. It's not our problem. Should we make decisions if it's not our problem? We're probably stepping over our boundaries, or, you know, being nosy, or, you know, involving ourselves in something that doesn't involve us, right? So that's a situation where we would avoid decisions. The problem is likely to correct itself. Maybe we don't need to make a decision because it's going to work itself out. What if we're upset, we're angry, had a bad day, and we're supposed to make a decision today? Probably should put it off until tomorrow, till we calm down, till we cool off, so that we're able to think rationally, right? What if we need more information? We don't want to be impulsive and make a quick decision before we've done thorough research, until we've, you know, clearly evaluated what's going on, gotten all the information or insight that we need before we make a decision. Or maybe it's an issue that needs to be delegated. Maybe we feel like we need to make a decision, but after thinking about it, we say, you know what, it's probably something my manager should make a call on. So maybe we'll delegate upward to our manager, or delegate to another supervisor, or even a staff member. Maybe it's something the staff member needs to work out. So whatever decision we make, we need to make sure it's effective, right? And to make sure that it's effective, it has to be these three things. The most cogent decision, meaning rational, it needs to be relevant, it needs to be timely, right? And it has to be acceptable to the people affected. Sure, there's going to be some times where we make decisions and it's not going to be acceptable. They're not going to like everything you decide on. That's just the way it works. But in most cases, we should try to make sure that it's acceptable, because if not, what happens is we're going to get a lot of pushback. People are not going to follow the rules or policy or whatever is aligned with the decision we're making. So it just, in the long run, it's easier if it's acceptable. All right, so we may have some really big problems at some points. And when we run into big problems, obviously making a decision on those isn't going to be as easy or as quick as it may be for something like this. So for a large problem, there's some steps that we should probably go through. The first step says prepare a problem statement. Basically, a problem statement is a statement that kind of describes what the problem is. You know, somebody give me an example of a big problem. Be it here.
Two employees fighting.
All right, so a fight between two employees. So our problem statement would be what? Two employees are not getting along or they're fighting, right? Step 2 would be obtaining the facts. How do we obtain the facts? Well, it's going to be through a few ways. Observation, maybe we've observed it ourselves. Maybe we have to research and talk to different people to see what's going on. Obviously, we're going to talk to the two people. But anyway, all of that's going to happen in step 2, where we're getting the facts. Step 3, now we start thinking about alternatives. What can we do? Do we need to change shift times for these two people so they're not working together? Do we need to move one person to a different area, a different department? Do we need to bring them together and just hash it out? So this would be a step where we try to think about all the different options that are available to try to solve this problem. Step 4, we're formulating criteria to evaluate the alternatives. Basically what that means is we're kind of prioritizing the alternatives, trying to figure out which one is going to be the best. We're ordering them, ordering our alternatives. Then moving on to step 5, where we're basically selecting what the best one is, what's the best alternative. After we've selected which one is the best alternative, and we'll say we decide that we're going to put them in 2 different shift times, so they're not working together. So step 6 would be look for flaws in this choice. Okay, so we chose that we're going to choose different shift times. Well, a flaw might be, Susie Q is really good at handling dementia patients, but now that we've switched her time to afternoon, it may cause our dementia patients, when they wake up in the morning, to be more unruly or something like that. So we have to look for any flaws that may be in the choice that we decide. Step 7, we're developing an action plan. So in this situation, an action plan might include what? Might include what choice we've decided to do, how we're going to handle it. So we're choosing the different shift times. We may say we're going to try this out for a week, see how it works. If it doesn't work, we'll reevaluate. If it doesn't work, we'll meet with them again and talk to them, whatever it may be. All that's going to be included in the action plan. Step 8, carry out the plan. So we say, all right, starting Monday, your shifts will start, your different shifts will start. And then step 9, you follow up. So after that week, we're following up with the 2 to see how things are going, if this is working, reevaluate. So basically, these are all the steps you go through when it's a big problem. Obviously, for smaller problems, you don't have time to do all of these. So you should only use this when it's a major problem that is going to require a lot of thinking, a lot of analysis before we just make a decision. And these are some tools that you can use for problem solving, and some of these are going to depend on what type of problem it is as to what tools you use. Some of them are simple, like a checklist, and then some of them are more advanced, like a Gantt chart or a PERT chart. So the take home here is just to know that there are tools out there that can help you problem solve and make decisions. So we also have individual problem solving and group problem solving. Again, we always talk about groups in healthcare, so you will have to encounter this at some point where you're in a group problem solving. You guys kind of do this with your case studies and your group projects that you do. But basically, group projects can be beneficial because you have more than one person contributing their thoughts, which will more than likely allow you to come up with more alternatives. When you have a group of people, everybody has different ideas, different opinions. So more than likely, you're probably going to get some really good ideas. And when you're in a group and you're having to make decisions, there's some things that need to happen in order for the group problem solving to be effective and not just be a waste of time. You need to make sure that everybody gets the opportunity to voice their opinion and say what they need to say and provide their insight. You don't want to have hasty conclusions or agreements. That's just gonna be a waste of time. You're not solving anything. You wanna make sure that you're evaluating the positives of each alternative, as well as the negatives. You wanna go through each alternative and see what the pros and cons of that are to see if it's a really good choice or not. If there's any disagreements, obviously you need to resolve them. It says avoid techniques of voting and bargaining. Why do you think that is?
Because the voting part might not be even, like the votes might not be even because you don't have an even number. And bargaining, you don't want to bargain with somebody to make a decision because it might not be the decision that they really want to make.
If it's a very important decision, like you said, voting, depending on how many people you have, that may not work. Bargaining, again, bargaining works sometimes in mediations and things of that nature, but when you're trying to come up with decisions, you never want to be persuading someone that may stunt them from providing their own ideas or opinions. If you're trying to bargain and persuade them to take on your idea. So you want to make sure that everybody is freely giving their opinions and their ideas. And then the last thing, you want to make sure that each member in the group is okay. And hopefully when you work in your groups, you do this. When you get the idea and you say you're going to do it this way, before you just turn it in, hopefully you guys say, is everybody cool with this? Even if they're not 100% completely cool with it, is it something you can live with? Should at least be the question you're asking before you come to your consensus or you turn in your project or whatever it may be. So we also have within working in groups structured brainstorming. This probably happens in your group projects also. You have a problem that you start out with that's presented to you and your group. Everybody thinks about the problem or the assignment and generates their ideas. Then everybody contributes their ideas. Everybody goes around and says, I think we should do this. I think we shouldn't do this. And this keeps going until everybody has done this. Then you guys hopefully talk about it. And then you rank or you prioritize which ideas are the best or which you think is most feasible, right? I'm hoping this is the way it goes. This is the easiest way. But the take home here is that when you brainstorm, it does have to have some type of structure. And the steps should go kind of in this order. Otherwise, if everybody's just off kind of doing their own thing, when you meet, what happens? It takes forever, right? There's no order, there's no structure. You're there for hours, and then at the end, you're wondering, what did we just do? Have we spent our time effectively and efficiently? And so this is why structured brainstorming is key, especially when you're working in groups, just so that you have some order. And that's it on decision making. But I wanted to go over it because it's very important, like I said, as managers. And even if we go on your example of seeing the different types of nursing homes, and if we think in terms of that one nursing home that you said, wasn't necessarily up to par, they probably have a lot of problems going on, right? A lot of decisions that they need to make. And so this is why, it's going to be key to know how to make decisions and what steps to take in order to get to the decision that you need to get to. Does anybody have any questions about decision making or problem solving?